Everybody, and welcome to the Sustainability and the Curriculum webinar. I think it's about time to get started, though we may have a couple of other people who join us throughout the session today. Just a couple of bit of housekeeping before we get rolling. I'll keep your microphones muted, but if you want to speak to the group hall to either ask a question or share some of your own insights, do feel free to unmute yourself. You can also use the chat function down in the bottom right-hand corner as well to chat with other folks on the call today, or to ask questions or to provide other input, as you've already been doing. Thanks everyone for introducing yourselves. It's great to have folks from so many different unions online today. If you have anything urgent that you want to ask about during the webinar, do just feel free to use the hand raising function, and we'll be recording the webinar today so that way others can watch and listen later. All right, so with that out of the way, let's get going. So mine is Quinn Runkle. I'm a Senior Sustainability Project Officer focusing on communities and curriculum within the Department for Sustainability here at NUS. So what I wanted to cover today is to first of all provide you with a little bit of a wider context of how NUS came to start begin its work around sustainability in the curriculum, and some background on our research in that area as well, and share with you a couple of case studies from other student unions, so some of the interesting things that are happening and maybe some of the actions you can take back to your own unions after the call today. I'll also then introduce you to a couple of NUS programs that can support you, your unions, and your work looking to embed sustainability in the curriculum. And I'd love to have a little bit of a conversation and discussion with everyone on the call today to you to shape our work, so get some feedback from you on the sorts of things that are a priority for you in the year ahead relating to this broader topic of sustainability in the curriculum. So hopefully that all sounds good to everyone on the call today, and I'll really look forward to getting some input from you as we go throughout the webinar. So to provide you some wider context, so the broader vision for our sustainability work here at NUS is twofold. So the first element is that we want to see students' unions as real hubs of sustainability within their local communities. So being the go-to place for sustainability leadership and sustainability activities for students. So really being the hub of that sort of activity. And secondly, all students leave tertiary education as part of the solution to sustainability and social justice challenges rather than as part of the problem. So when we talk about things like graduate attributes or the skills and knowledge and attitudes that we want students to be leaving our institutions with, it's purely for this purpose. So to see the kind of students that are graduating from our institutions be those who are problem solvers and who are ready to really find solutions to our greatest sustainability and social justice challenges, both in their personal and professional lives in the future. Our sustainability work really falls into three spheres. So there's the work that we do directly with students' unions through things like Green Impact Students' Unions and through programs like Responsible Futures, where we work with the student union and the institution in partnership to embed sustainability across the curriculum. And then obviously there's a great deal of work that we do offering bespoke support to students' unions and a range of other sort of training and workshop opportunities as well as conferences and those sorts of things. Then we also work directly with institutions, so universities and colleges right across the UK supporting their sustainability and behaviour change work. And we also do a great deal of work in the community, so with off-campus organizations, creating opportunities for students and students to build links within their local communities. So whether that's things like working with the local council to deliver something like Green Impact, or whether that's engaging the local fire service in more pro-environmental behaviours, or simpler things like supporting end-of-year sustainable move-out campaigns or better community-based recycling programs, all those sorts of things that really integrate the off-campus community as well. And the overall mission is that by students engaging with sustainability within all three of those spheres, that they're able to leave tertiary education as part of the solution. In each of those spheres, we really aim to include a variety of different factors and be mindful of different parts of the student experience. So, of course, students are at the heart of all of the work that we do, and so including them within the development of those programs and within the delivery of those programs is absolutely key, as well as engaging staff in those programs, and then coupling that with engagement in the curriculum. So the ideal scenario is that students are really engaging with others, with members of staff at the institution, and seeing those issues also reflected in their curriculum. And when we talk about curriculum, we often refer to curriculum in the sense of the formal curriculum, so what's on the syllabus, what students are expecting to learn through their course content, but it's important to be mindful of two other parts of the curriculum, which is the informal and the subliminal curriculum. So in the formal, there's also, of course, the informal curriculum, which is all of the information and experiences and knowledge and skills that students gain from everything that they do outside of their formal course. So that's absolutely where things like volunteering and campaigning, working with other students on projects, volunteering in the community and on campus, all of that fits in hugely to the informal curriculum. And there's certainly an argument to be made that when it comes to sustainability, the informal curriculum is where we have much stronger engagement on the agenda right now than within the formal curriculum. Part of the curriculum there is the subliminal curriculum, and this is certainly discussed much less often than the other two. And the subliminal curriculum is the underlying sort of messages and social norms that are created within a university or college community. So that's reinforced and created by the way that the Students' Union talks about sustainability, by the way that the university talks about sustainability, by the way that sustainability is demonstrated in practice on campus. So things like having good recycling provisions across campus, having efficient cycle parking, things like that really demonstrate that the campus is sort of living what it preaches when it comes to sustainability, and that students are actually able to see things being demonstrated in practice, or maybe they learn it theoretically in the formal curriculum, and maybe they campaign on it with informal curriculum, but in the subliminal curriculum, you want to see things actually in place on campus. So that's where there's a really clear link to things like estate teams. So when we think about all those spheres of engagement around sustainability and the sorts of things that we're wanting to include, all of that really forms the basis of how we think about ESD. So ESD is Education for Sustainable Development, and that's the process of equipping students with the knowledge and understanding, skills, and attributes to work and live in such a way that safeguards environmental, social, and economic well-being, both in the present and for future generations. So a definition of ESD comes from the HEA-QAA guidance, which was published in 2014, after quite a significant sort of consultative process looking at how sustainability can best be embedded within courses. And it's actually a great document to definitely look up if you're interested in finding a little bit more. It's pretty user-friendly and a really interesting overview of the topic. But the really important reason why we use this definition for ESD is because it goes well beyond the idea of ESD just being knowledge and understanding. So in order for students to be those sort of agents of change that we talked about earlier, not only have the knowledge about the sustainability and social justice challenges that we face, but also the skills that mean that they can do something about it and that they feel empowered to take action, and then also the attributes that mean that they feel compelled to do something about it and that they feel it sort of suits their value set to take on these issues. And that's for their work life and their personal life. So we'd love to see students leaving tertiary education with an understanding and the ability to influence sustainability and social justice issues with both their professional lives, no matter what career it is that they end up going into, and also within their personal lives. Sort of definition that we use when we think about ESD and what it is that we're actually trying to achieve. In terms of our own sustainability journey at NUS, we absolutely started off with looking primarily at behavior change and the sort of built environment. So as you'll know from some of our most popular programs like Student Switch Off and Green Impact, we've looked at engaging students and staff where they live and where they work in taking on more pro-environmental behaviors. But we know that that's only one piece of the puzzle, because students and staff can be behaving sustainably, but actually if that's not reflected within their course and within their formal learning at the institution, we might be missing sort of the holistic way of thinking about sustainability. The research that we've been doing over the past 5 years really demonstrates that there is a really strong student demand to have sustainability embedded within student courses as well. So in partnership with the HEA for about 5 years, we did an annual student attitudes towards and expectations of sustainability within higher education. And recently this year, we've been doing a survey independent of the HEA, which means that we've now been able to run it with further education institutions as well. So again, getting a much more holistic picture. But the findings continue to demonstrate the same sort of statistics, which is that there's a really latent interest in sustainability. So the first 4 bars there demonstrate that about 85% of students consistently say that they agree or strongly agree that sustainable development is something which universities should be actively incorporating and pushing. Such proportion of students who are really seeing it as an institutional priority for their universities. The second 4 bars there demonstrate that about 70% of students say sustainable development is something which university courses should actively incorporate and promote, so something which should be then included within the formal curriculum. And following that, about 60 to 65% of students consistently say that sustainable development is something which they would like to learn more about themselves. So all of those statistics really demonstrate that there is a very strong student to see sustainability further embedded within not only the institutions, but really within their courses. There's a really strong interest from students in this. This survey was quite deliberately has bias, so we're not just seeing sustainability, but broadly representative of all the students we have. So those sort of statistics are really helpful to be mindful of. It straight that sort of student demand. I'll find all of those reports on in case you need those sorts of statistics or other similar stuff or meetings or campaigns you do around campuses as well. And the reason why this is really important that we sort of follow student demand is because when fees were originally introduced, it was under the guise of students being at the heart of the system. And so it was around the idea that students would then be able to demand what they wanted from their universities, that they would be able to get what they really wanted out of their education. And what we've seen since the introduction of fees is that students still aren't getting what they were promised. And so increasingly, there's an argument to be made that actually, if students are demanding sustainability as part of their curriculum, we know that 60 to 65% of students want to see more sustainability in their curriculum. That's absolutely something institutions should be held to account for. Obviously, there's a million and one other positive benefits in embedding sustainability in the curriculum as well. But students really do hold a great deal of power in what the curriculum can look like. And the reason why it's quite important to get it right is that only 3% of people around the world attend university, but they actually make up 80% of leadership positions around the globe. So 80% of presidents, prime ministers, CEOs, chairs of boards, all of that have attended university. And so when we think about how we can capture the leaders of the future in order to sort of instill pro-sustainability and pro-social justice attitudes and behaviors within them, it's whilst they're at university. Another statistic that I heard recently is that 1 in 10 current world leaders were educated in the UK. So when we even think about the global responsibility that UK universities in particular hold, that's really reinforced by that statistic. So the global reach and the really significant reach to leaders can certainly be made through influencing students whilst they're studying at university. Of what ESD actually means for students, so what the implications of a good ESD education look like in their degree. There's a couple of key factors. So the first is that it will help students to consider the concept of global citizenship within the context of their own discipline and in their future professional and personal lives. So we're looking at sustainability in its broadest definition, so not just thinking about environmental sustainability, but really thinking about global citizenship, social justice, social sustainability, and making sure that that's incorporated in a meaningful way within every discipline. Key element here is that ESD impact not only on what students are learning, but also how students are learning. And this often sort of runs hand in hand with the sort of quality education campaigns or demands that a students' union might already have to their institutions. So seeing more democratic and participatory learning approaches being modeled, so having students have a much greater voice in their classroom, and in enabling students to really ask for what we want out of their course. And the second element of that is around teaching, learning, and assessment activities really linked to real-life concerns. So what we often hear from students when we're chatting with them about ESD is that they learn the theory around sustainability and social justice issues, but they never, ever get the opportunity to apply that in a really tangible, real-life way. See, coming out of an ESD education is that they're actually getting that really hands-on experience, which we know from students volunteering with our students' unions, that that's a sort of skill set that they need to find quality employment after they've graduated, but also to really feel like they're getting a holistic education. Third element here is that students will be thinking about issues of social justice, ethics, and well-being, and how these relate to ecological and economic factors. So, for example, when we think about climate change within the context of many disciplines, not limiting that to a scientific understanding of climate change, but also understanding how that impacts the global north in a different way, certainly than it impacts the global south, the social injustices within that, how health and well-being link to broader ecological and economic factors, and really tying all of that in together. Lastly, that students are really developing a future-facing outlook. So they're learning to think about the consequences of actions and gaining a really solid understanding about how systems and societies can be adapted to ensure sustainable futures. So that real sort of skills and attribute focus of ESD comes through quite strongly in that, in the sort of outlook that we want graduates to having when they leave tertiary education. That's the sort of key overview of what ESD is all about and what it means for students. The sort of skills that they would be gaining through an ESD education, and these are the sorts of things that students actually told us themselves that they feel like they've gained, is a couple of different things. So the ability to analyze different subjects, strong systems thinking, critical thinking abilities, understanding people's relationship to nature, global citizenship perspectives, long and short-term planning, understanding ethical issues in relation to the subject, and resource efficiency. So the whole range of skills that you can see there reflect many skills that we want students to be gaining regardless of an ESD education. So things like thinking and ability to analyze different subjects and a degree of sort of interdisciplinarity within that all really reflects the fact that the skills that students can be gaining through sustainable development education are also the kind of skills that universities and students' unions typically want to see their students gaining anyway. Ultimately, the key thing that ESD really allows institutions to do is to move from a conversation around limiting the bad when we think about sustainability and really moving to a place where we can talk about creating more good. So ESD allows universities, colleges, students' unions to absolutely multiply the positive effects that they're having on society rather than simply limiting the negative effects. And what we mean by that is when we think about sustainability in purely an environmental context, the conversation often goes to limiting carbon emissions, limiting energy use, increasing recycling, but it's all about limiting the negative footprint that an organization may have. Whereas when we talk about ESD, it's talking about creating real leaders and agents of change who are able to create ongoing positive outcomes, not only while they're studying at a particular institution, but when they graduate and go off into the world. To quote here from John Robinson, who's the Provost of Sustainability at the University of British Columbia, which is in Canada, and he says, we don't need simply to reduce harmful outcomes, we need to create positive ones. We don't want to live less unsustainable world, we want a sustainable one. So it's an interesting way, I think, to think about the benefits ESD really provides. That's sort of an overall understanding of ESD and what it's all about and what the impacts are on students. We'll move on to sharing a couple of different case studies from students' unions. So where this has really been done in practice and just some different examples that you can take back to your own SU. If the things that I share are things that you guys are already doing or that you've had success with as well, please do say so in the text box. I'd be really curious to find out. The first is to be working with course reps. So there's a great deal of engagement that's taken place with course reps recently, thinking about sustainability in the curriculum. Of course, there's sort of initial audience a lot of students' unions may turn to when you're looking at the sort of students that you want to be engaging around the topic of ESD. So at Greenwich Student Union, their Sustainability Hub has done a great deal of work with program representatives and course reps from all across the courses at the university. And they've actually supported them to audit their own and other courses. So help the student union to build a really solid understanding of the current levels of sustainable development in the curriculum. And it's also been an incredible training opportunity for individual students. So they've trained up 96 students who have officially completed the training and done an audit of a course, but had near 200 students express interest in the program. So know that the demand is really high, and so they're going to be continuing to offer training sessions and this opportunity to other students. So to date, 95 undergraduate programs have been assessed by the students that they've trained. And so they have 58 programs left to go over the next couple of months. But I think this is a really nice example of this really giving course reps a tangible action that they can do around sustainable development in their own curriculum. And they've now been supporting those course reps in going on to demand more from their courses and from the institution in cases where they found there wasn't or enough sustainability within the curriculum. And then in other cases where they've found some really nice examples of SD in the curriculum, they've then been able to shout about that a little bit more and highlight the good practice that already exists at the institution. That's the first example there then around engaging with course reps. The second example that I wanted to share was around taking a motion to council, so engaging students and representatives through the democratic procedures within the students' union. So a number of students' unions within about the last year or two have been taking motions to council to demonstrate their support for ESD, their commitment to campaigning for sustainable development in the curriculum, and just sort of a general statement of support for students who are trying to campaign on ESD. And last year at National Conference in the US, there was a national policy which championed by Leeds University Union, which led on to NUS support more national campaigning around ESD and onto the further development of the Responsible Futures program, which I mention in a little bit more detail in a moment. Council can be a really engaging way to demonstrate the students' union support for this topic, but also to foster some debate and conversation about it amongst your student representatives. The sort of key case study that I wanted to share is around building strong partnerships. So because ESD really is cross-cutting through the university and the students' union, when we look at the formal, informal, and subliminal curriculum, there are elements of all three that the students' union and the university both play a role in. And so one key success that students' unions have had when it comes to ESD is really building a strong partnership with the university. So at UE, the students' union and the university have worked together really, really closely. So I was speaking to them about what they found some of the mutual benefits to be of working in partnership. And the key sorts of things they were able to reflect on was, first of all, for the students' union, greater knowledge of the institution's activities around this agenda. So much work on ESD can happen behind the scenes. And so actually for the students' union to be working in partnership with the university, they've gained a really in-depth perspective on what was already happening and where they could then influence that and play a role in shaping those areas of work. That's been a really key outcome. Has been a really high increase in support for related students' union activities. So as soon as the university was able to see that the students' union absolutely had a role to play on the ESD agenda and was championing this agenda so heavily, the university has actually been able to provide greater funding and support for related staff roles with the students' union, and they've now been working collaboratively on various projects as a result. The last element there is that they've now been able to put together some sort of shared aims around student engagement, around providing more quality education, and on the topic of employability. Building that strong partnership, both the students' union and the university were really able to benefit hugely from that partnership. And certainly that's sort of a theme that we see across many institutions who are doing great work on ESD. We see the students' union and the university or the college working really closely together. Fourth and final sort of case study and example that I wanted to share is the importance of making ESD relevant to all courses, regardless of the discipline. And there's a couple of institutions and students' unions who've done an incredible job of this. So one is the University of Bristol has started running an annual conference, which is called A Student's Guide to Sustainability. And it's an opportunity for students right across the university to showcase their own research on various topics related to sustainability. So the link for them was really important to make to a variety of different courses. And what they found was that through having this sort of sustainability conference on research, they were able to engage a different cohort of students than those who were coming out to more campaign-based sustainability engagement. So they're connecting with hard to engage students in many cases. They were making links to more high contact hour courses as well. So things like medical, dental, or veterinary education, where, as we know, students tend to be incredibly busy with their coursework, and that sometimes limits the degree of sort of volunteer engagement that they can have with the Students' Union. But by having that really clear academic link with this particular conference, they were able to get quite a different cohort of students involved. At the other end of the spectrum, we also find that ESC can be made relevant to literally any topic of study that students are doing. And a nice way of demonstrating that is that at Fife College, which is the photo on the right-hand side there, they've actually started up a green hairdressing program. So this has been running for a couple of years now, and you may well have heard about it because they were the winner of a Green Gown Award to recognize this. But their whole idea is actually that hairdressers use a whole range of different products, engage with a whole range of different people, and so by embedding sustainability right through their entire hairdressing program, they've really been able to transform the type of education that those students are gaining. Those range of different examples, we can see that there can be a clear connection made to a variety of different courses for ESD, and that actually making those connections meaningful within the context of that course is a really important thing to ensure that it remains relevant and interesting to the students who are involved. 4 case studies hopefully have given you a little bit of a perspective on the sorts of things that students' unions are doing right across the UK, both in further education and in higher education. And it's really nice to see that sort of range of different activities. And I think in general, we're seeing the range of engagement really increasing from students' unions on this agenda. I'd be really interested to hear when we have a chance to chat about all of these topics at the end from you guys for the sorts of things that you've been doing on this agenda as well. But before we jump into that discussion, I also want to share with you 2 programs that can support you that NUS is doing around the topic of ESD. So the first of which is Dissertations for Good. Many may have heard about it. It was piloted last year and was launched fully this year. And in essence, Dissertations for Good is a partnership service which links together students with community organizations or small, medium-sized businesses, either nationally or locally, to complete their dissertation on a research topic that's relevant to that organization, but that is also then fulfilling the requirements of that student's dissertation. So the reason why this is really impactful is because we often hear from students that their dissertation is likely read by themselves and the dissertation supervisor, and the amount of work and effort and good thinking and theory and research that goes into a dissertation should absolutely not be wasted just to sit on a shelf. And so through Dissertations for Good, that research is brought to life and has a positive, tangible impact for the organizations that students are partnered with. Students to develop more hands-on real-life skills in relation to their research, so that way their research isn't limited to theoretical concepts, but it's actually applied in a real-world situation. So that's Dissertations for Good, and at the end of the webinar, I'll share the web link if you'd like to find out more. The other program that NUS has recently created that you will be able to use to support your ESD ESD work is Responsible Futures. So Responsible Futures, like Dissertations for Good, was piloted in 2014-15, and it has been rolled out fully this past academic year. And in essence, Responsible Futures is a certification of a whole institution approach to embedding sustainability and social responsibility in the curriculum. So it creates a partnership between the Students' Union and the institution, and then that partnership is really actively supported by NUS. So by staff within NUS, but also a whole resource bank, and that partnership then works through as criteria that outline best practice from across the sector. So it really helps to shape the work on this agenda right across the formal and the informal curriculum. Early findings have shown that it's quite impactful in the way that it's transformed the way that the university or college and the Students' Union are working together, and has had really tangible impacts in reforming the curriculum for individual courses, as well as really engaging students in a more meaningful way in the design and creation of courses. It's also played a key role in transforming the sort of leadership and strategy around this agenda right across the institution. So again, if you're interested in learning more, I'll share the web link at the end. It has given you, hopefully, quite an in-depth look at what Education for Sustainable Development is all about. So case studies from various students' unions, and then a couple of examples of programs that NUS is running that can continue to support your work. What I want to ask you guys to do now is to engage a little bit in shaping our own work. So thinking about your efforts to embed ESD at your institution. I get a little bit of a conversation going in the chat box around 4 main questions, which is, what are the visions for your institution? So for all of you trying to engage with maybe course leaders or work with course reps, or just getting started on your ESD journeys, what are the major challenges that you feel like you're facing? Secondly, what do you feel like the motivating factors are? So what are the things that may be driving your Students' Union to learn a little bit more or start to take action on this agenda? Then thirdly, what do you aim to achieve on ESD in the year ahead? Are there some sort of key things that you're hoping to tackle? Maybe some of those examples from the case studies can help to give you some inspiration for the sorts of things you'd like to achieve in the year ahead. And then lastly, how can we help to get you there? So are any sorts of resources or bits of support that you feel like NUS should be providing on this agenda that they can start to look at providing for you to support your work? So I'll ask you guys to go ahead and in the chat box start contributing to the question of your choice. It would be really interesting to get some feedback from you on any of those 4. So feel free to start with whichever one you feel like you'd like to contribute to. I'm just going to pause the recording for a moment, so that way the folks who listen to the recording later on don't need to just read a chat box going by. So I'll do that very quickly, and then please do feel free to start contributing your thoughts. Again, for all of your incredible input there into a discussion. It's really, really inspiring to hear about the things that you guys are already doing, and really helpful to have a better understanding of some of the challenges that you're facing as well. So just as we wrap up here, to leave you with one quote that sort of captures, I think, a lot of what we're aiming for around the ESD agenda, which is this from Jonathan Porritt, which is that we should be preparing students for the work of the world, not just the world of work. So we think about the way in which we want our graduates to be prepared for their future professional and personal lives. It's more than just preparing students to a job, period, but it's preparing students to really be the agents of change and the problem solvers that we know that we need in order to solve our greatest sustainability and social justice challenges. So I think that's the real inspiration for us in how we think about and shape our ESD work. So for both Responsible Futures and Dissertations for Good, if you're interested in learning a little bit more, you can visit the websites there through those URLs or just Google programs as well. And feel free to speak with us if you want to learn more about some sort of bespoke support for your Students' Union ESD work. So whether that's helping out with things like course rep training or helping to facilitate how you can engage the university, we're really keen to, first of all, know what you guys are up to on campus and to be able to really actively support that as well. So definitely do get in touch to sort of fill us in on everything that's going on and to ask and reach out for support as well. Also make use of things like the e-GISC to ask other students' unions what they're up to on this agenda. Thank you so much for attending the webinar today and for all of your input. If you have any other questions or would like to have some more of a discussion, feel free to stay online, to use the chat box or to unmute yourselves, and we can have a little bit of a further conversation. But otherwise, thank you very much. You can find out more about NUS's broader sustainability work at nus.org.uk sustainability, and you can get in touch with the general sustainability team through sustainability@nus.org.uk. I'll also pop my email address in the chat box now, so that way you can get in touch with me if you'd like to chat further about any of your ESD work. But thank you again for joining in the webinar today. It's been really wonderful to learn a little bit more about what you're up to. Great question. Yeah, so we'll send around slides as a follow-up to the webinar, so you get access to this as well. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a really nice rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.